beautiful, mysterious, magical wonderment that it is to be incarnate into the flesh. Stage one of our lunar sequence, the monthly lunar pattern, in preparation for the journey of leaving the form behind. We do that every month, and it begins with the moon transiting gate 10. So that unusual frequency of focusing our potential behavior on this vehicle, the gate of the behavior of the self. So the gate activation actually going into the line quality 4 is what starts the shutting down of the mutative capacity, where we get impacted within the entirety of all of our cells in the body. Every month when gate 10 goes through, or sorry, the moon goes through gate 10, line 4, that's when it starts to shut down the mutative capacity in preparation for death. So we get prepared to die every month. And then we have stage 2. So about 11, 12 days, I think, where the difficulty at the beginning, this gate of ordering, another individual gate that gives us the pulse engine that is a direct result of the function of our magnetic monopole, which happens to be stage 3. When the magnetic monopole gets hit, you can see quite quickly within a few, what is that, twice in a day. So 2, 4, like 6 days later, we have the direction of the self. Yeah. The moon going from the 3 into the 2, that magnetic monopole that holds us together, me to me, you to you, in our illusion of separation. And the second and third gates, I just noticed, because they're intrinsic to the large group mechanics, we know this to be the organizing channels, 6 of them, of a group of 16 people. So our death journey around the wheel that began with the gate 10, then moved into the 3, then into the 2. I was contemplating that this morning and thinking, well, of course, because we are in forms that are transient, as in terminal, of course, was too, all was die, right? All was, even all was come to an end. Even great nations, they have their rise and fall, as you can see clearly from our history. So kind of an interesting thing to see. And that those walls are built on Penta, the base group of 5 people within that large group construct. And the reason why we're focusing on that is because of this gate 2, where the magnetic monopole sits, being an intrinsic part of the dying process. So all small groups, all families, all small businesses, they die. It is just what the nature of being alive is all about. Things come to an end, everything's transient, and that everything has a magnetic monopole, the singularly pulling magnet that is responsible for holding us together in this life existence on our path and our trajectory through space, as our binary consciousness being held together by the magnetic monopole has this illusion of separation from the totality, and yet it is pulling us together. So I love that Katja separated out the body graph so that we can see how it pulls. It's actually the monopole pulling the design crystal to it and the personality crystal to it. And where we get connected up to ourselves, our personality, with our unconscious, our design, is through the agency of that magnetic monopole. Because normally we see it as this, and I go, look, it's pulling, you know? But the fact that it's split apart, we can see now how Ra would say that we have these link nodes in our design. The link nodes that show us how we are here to connect up. On the design side, it's the north node, okay? And on the personality side, it is the south node. Those are our link nodes. These are the only places where this monopole actually holds us together in this illusion of being separate from the totality of existence. So the fact that these link nodes really start to show up linked around your Uranus opposition is another, as in you can experience it, see it, witness it, feel it, be a part of it in the life process around your Uranus opposition. When it really comes to fruition, it shows us so much about the nature of how we are here to evolve or mature and eventually mutate, is that it takes time. It's a process that takes time. So you're welcome, Dinesh. Really glad you're here. So as we look into further this death and dying process, it's important that we remember that we fully are not even incarnate into the vehicle, that the personality is just floating around, not fully embodied. It's just being, witness, consciousness, and this personality being held to the form by the magnetic monopole, the singularly pulling magnet, and it gives us our illusion of being this form, but it's really not that we are this. We have a rented, borrowed vehicle, according to Ra. The personality not even being fully in the body, floating around in the aura. The personality being the witness, and the body is the life. I oftentimes repeat that so that you remember that the body is your life and that your body has this life, and that there is this experience of allowance that the personality can surrender to as a witness to allow for the body to have the life that it was designed for. Rather than railing at its fate or kicking and screaming, throwing little mental temper tantrums, can we surrender? Ra would call surrender being the personality surrendering to the form principle. Another thing I like to commonly repeat is that Ra would say, see the body as the solution, not the problem. And now, if you think about it, how often have we complained about our bodies? I'm too fat, I'm too thin, I'm too tall, I'm too short, I'm too loud, I'm too whatever. Whatever the personality judges or recriminates against this beautiful one precious body that it has to live its life. What if that was immediately gone? Can you imagine? Never having any complaints about your body, but simply being in the utter acceptance of whatever may be. Think for a moment. Can you imagine that? Whatever it is that the body is experiencing or expressing, how different your life experience would be if you could simply accept the body's reality. What a difference it would be as a life process. I really want you to grasp that because it is a lived experience I have had, not constantly, obviously. Everybody still gets sick and dies, and the personality, depending on how it's programmed, that's the key to know that we are programmed to experience this lunar cycle as the moon goes around the wheel counterclockwise as it moves around the wheel. Isn't that right? Where we have this monopole. When it hits, the moon hits that monopole, it's sitting on a gateway to death, as in, we're going to leave this form now. And the monopole is only too happy to do so because it is linked to the design crystal. Now, let's look at some new material for this week, for those of you who are continuing on in the journey. If you look at this body graph, and we're looking at it in accordance with circuitry now, we can see that this is the abstract circuitry, sensing circuitry, part of the collective frequency. Life is about the experience. the very home of the central, I guess you could call it a hub. These are vortices. This one's energy and information. Spirit, developing spirit consciousness, solar plexus. The very heart of the human experiential way is dealing with fate, dealing with feelings. So life itself is dependent on our experience. We have a start codon, 41. We have the two stop codons of the abstract here, 33 and 56. And we have the gate of beginnings. So this abstract circuitry gives our life dimensionality because it is life. To be embodied, gate 46, in the discovery of being committed to being in this form, this life, with all of its cycles of beginnings, middles, and ends of experience, to have growth, to have crisis in order to make progress. And then through that crisis of inexperience and finally experiencing the change and making progress, wanting to have new experiences. It's just a cyclical process of, okay, been there, done that. What's next? There's always going to be something next. But in order for us to have a next, something has to end. We die. And before we die, there tends to be a lot of recollection of the past experiences. And we may fantasize about new experiences, or we may just want to, because we're curious, to want to make sense out of life experience. We may just want to tell our story. And that's why at the end of everybody's lives, you may see those of us who have always dreamed of writing a book. You may see us write our memoirs. This is where that's about, sharing the memory or the beliefs of what the experience brought to us. So this abstract experiential process brings us our life experience. And it always touches me so deeply when I hear Ra talk about the gate 29, this abysmal, the deep within the deep, because it's my earth. This is part of the human experiential way over here where my sun sits. So they are polar oppositions in the wheel, 29 and 30. Life gives us an experience. No matter how short or long it be, it is our lives, as in the witness, consciousness, and then this form, this one precious life that we have. So the fate, the thread of fate gets cut short. Or not. Maybe you have a nice long life, relatively, whatever that case may be. It is the 29th gate that gives us the commitment to embodiment. You see this 46th gate. We know that's the mother of all fears for the body's demise because it's the lead hexagram into all of the gates within the splenic center, which are about our form. Yeah, the form consciousness. So the commitment to life happens here in the gate 29. It says yes. Yes to being in this body. Now, it also gives us abstract circuitry, gives us our history, the secrets that we've seen. It stimulates us. It provides us with memories, part of the memory circuitry here, these particular aspects specifically, where we have all of these wonderful life experiential things for us to either experience for the first time or to look back upon and reflect upon and remember. Now, if we only had logic, we would not move around a lot. We would stagnate in fixed patterns. There wouldn't necessarily be the kind of movement or frequency that the abstract circuit brings to us through the human experiential way, because this is about experience. The human experiential way gives us our experience and commitment to life. The logic gives us patterns. The driving force of the life force is actually here in the abstract. The actual act of fornication. At first I thought of the common example he would give of eating the mushroom, which leads sometimes some people to death. But there's a lot of physicality here in the sensing circuitry, the feeling, you know. Over here, we don't have sex. The only gate that really is about sex, love with sex, would be the 41st gate. So this is a deeply sexual stream here. And we have to have bodies, 46, in order for us to have the sexual experience. But the logic, no, this is about the pattern of things, very different thing. So when we look at the abstract, and particularly in its context with the sacral center, we have the source of a life process. We have commitment and we have endings. So anything having to do with the life process ultimately has to find its source in our sacral center, because the sacral creates life. That's what it's all about. It creates life. It is productive. It is reproductive. It is regenerative, not just generative, regenerative. So the 29th gate gives us the power to commit ourselves to an experience. When we come to the abstract process, we're looking again at the sacral center, this beautiful, thriving, generative hum, where we see the one key for our death cycle is the 29th gate here in the abstract, that Ra says it can be difficult to grasp as far as its power. And I'll quote here, "It is a power that in many ways has even greater power than the power of the great." That's the 34th gate. It's an enormous thing. It's the power to commit one to the experience. It's what I've called it for so many years, the gate of saying yes, unquote. Yes to life experience. It is the deep within the deep, the abysmal. If we think about this incredible power and we compare that to, let's say, the pulse of the 34, we know that 34 is part of integration. And therefore, because it's overlaid on top of centering as well, we know that it operates in an on-off pulse. And we just talked about the on-off of the gate 3 and 2. But now we have either yes or no. The deep within the deep, it's deeper even than the 48th gate, the well, because a well has a bottom, doesn't it? So much more that we have in store for us with this 29th gate, because it seems like this infinite resource, an infinite capacity to commit or dedicate yourself to a process, to surrender yourself completely over to the experience, to breathing, to life, to whatever it is. This amazing power that permeates everything. I'm going to share something personal with you. One of the things that I have experienced in my life are tremendous moments of incredible pain in which the only solution was to give over control and surrender oneself completely, as in submit to the experience of excruciating pain. And I'm not just talking physically. Emotional pain can be just as painful. Now, if you could imagine yourself surrendering completely to pain, and I mean absolutely accepting whatever pain was being given, and you could come to rest in that space of transcending that experience, the pain, by allowing the pain, we move through it. And it is one of the secrets and keys to my experience that I wish to transmit to you. So often, too often, so many of us get caught up in trying to resist pain, whether that be the pain of telling the truth, the pain of what is, the pain or the suffering of the worry or concern for your body, for your family, for your life, whatever it is. You know, the pain of loss, let's imagine, because I imagine most of you have lost something or someone. And when you resist that pain of loss, let's say you're anticipating the pain. So it's not even here yet. One of the things that this body, mind so often actually goes into the experience of is anytime someone I have not heard from for a while, whether they be sleeping in their room or someone on a trip and hasn't called, if I have expected them, let go of expectations, abstract. But if I am wondering, where are they? Then one of the first things that my mind has this habit or pattern of going to is, what if they died? And then the mind, believing the mind story, what if they died? All this pain or worry or concern rushing in. And then you're suffering, worrying needlessly. The pain of the loss isn't even here yet. That's Maya. That is your Maya. Because of the framework that your personality is experiencing its life. It is the witness, though. If we could instead shift our focus over to the body, again, going back to the actual physical experience of pain, if you could imagine with me, or maybe remember, back to an experience where you were completely subjected to pain you could do nothing about. You couldn't take a pill, you couldn't get some kind of injection, you were in pain. If you embrace the pain, it will transcend, as in, your body actually creates chemicals. Did you know? Your body creates chemicals to deal with pain. It does the same thing with death. And what's so interesting, fascinating, is that we are designed to die in peace. The body creates its chemicals in order to have bliss chemicals that allow us to die in peace. Even if we are in pain, almost immediately, the body starts to create these chemicals to help us combat the pain, to help us have a transcendent experience. But when you're railing against your fate, when you're imagining something that yet may be and it hasn't come yet to fruition, there's the not self for you. Okay, so without this 29th gate, Ra says that we are helpless and hopeless, truly, because the 29th gate drives the whole process of giving our body its infinite capacity to confront the material plane. Unquote. This is the pain of existence, this deep within the deep. He goes on to joke about how if you knew what it was like to be embodied, you probably wouldn't bother with it. But again, we are dragged kicking and screaming, according to him. The design of succeeding where others fail, or failing where others succeed. Remember that where people succeeds in a narrow sense, according to the success of the form, the 46th gate, the gate of serendipity, good fortune, good luck. It's about embodiment. It is about being in the right place at the right time. So our body calling us in through the magnetic monopole, calling the personality in to the embodiment, choosing us, not the other way around. The body chooses the personality through frequency. Imagine the grace, the blessedness to be embodied now, because if you were to look out at this physical world and see the magnetic monopoles, sorry, those are in the earth, to see the personality crystals, there we go. If you were to look around the earth and actually see the personality crystals floating, it would be a dense cloud and we'd never see the sun. So the success of this form has to do with the vehicle, the body, which is the life. And the commitment to the experience, the thing that gives this 29th gate such an incredible mystery, is that it is the resource for the deepest experiential processes, the experiences of embodiment that we can have in our commitment to life and our commitment to death. Again, death just being a transition, a doorway. One door closes, another one opens. Now, if we think about this abysmal, that gate 29, the gate of perseverance, sometimes it doesn't make any sense. And if we think about the gate 20, contemplation, the gate of the now, it's labeled as far as now. So we think of it as the existential truth. But truly what it is it's an expression of now. It's an expression of now because it is a throat gate, one of the primary gates of action, because it is directly connected up potentially to the sacral energy. So we have this expression of action in the now. But it's not the life attention to this form or this embodiment. Embodiment is the 46. 29 is the gate of saying yes or no. It says yes to life experience, yes to commitment. Rob would joke, yes, you can fuck up my life. Yes, you can have all my money. Yes, you can take anything I own. Yes, 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 yes. Unfortunately, I know about this as far as having problems with boundaries, allowing things to simply be taken when we are demanding that we be asked. Anyone who has any gate within the sacral center, you're here to be asked for that energy, whether you are generative or not. The respect to the sacral, the respect to the form requires an asking. Your life is not here to be taken. Although life can take you. But the asking is where we have the respect to this commitment. Remember, if you are generative or a generator, then to be asked means that you have the opportunity to respond. So it is a beautiful gift that you are given to know that you are deserving of the asking, that no one can just take your power from you. And here are our stages. It's like when we look at these stages of dying, you look at the 10 and the 3 and the 2. There's nothing that's really, really touching the commitment to embodiment of the life force quite yet. Yeah, there's the turning of the magnetic monopole. Remember, it turns in order to open up that doorway for us to go out, as in the body, to go out, opposite the gate 60. But it's not conditioned there when you go from the 10 to the 2 through the 3. No matter how rotten you feel, it doesn't mean that you're going to die yet. When the moon goes through these gates, it doesn't mean death, you're at death's doorway. It doesn't mean anything, this moon moving through 10, 3, and 2. It doesn't until we get past the point of no return. And that is the gate 29, line 6. Okay. So when we talk about moon moving through gate 10 to 3 to 2, most of it is incredibly psychological. The impact of the moon going through those gates is the psychological preparation for death. But when we get to the 29th gate, we're talking about the physical, visceral preparation to say no to life and yes to death. That's a very different story. So we see the abysmal, this deep within the deep, the gate of perseverance, commitment, and dedication. If we think about what happens when we no longer have access to persevering at the life process, it's not simply that the 29th gate provides energy for commitment to life itself. It's actually driving our life processes. Remember, all of you have a gate 29. whether you have a planet there or not, all of you. You're committed to life because you're alive. You still exist, yes? Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening. But if you're going to make a commitment to the experiential plane, there are many other things that go along with it. We have to eat, feed the body, treat the body like a temple, not a toilet, 46. Yeah, you're going to need to do the work experience, one of the gates of super slavery, 29 and 14. You're going to need to work in order to make money, in order to eat, have shelter for this temple, to adorn the body. 46 is the adornment of the form. Make it smell nice, make it feel good, massage it, and all of those things. Treat it nice because it's your temple, the body being a temple of the spirit. So there's all these things that come along with the life process, the daily experiences that you put yourself through in order to get from getting out of bed to climbing back into bed. Yes? So the commitment to the process of being embodied in life itself, discovery, that channel. It's not just the commitment to experience being embodied or being in the temple, but it's the commitment at the most existential level of being here and now. That 46th gate at the highest level is the recognition that the vehicle is a temple, and we are here to worship that temple, our vehicle. Think about the 90,000 years in our ancient seven-centered religious constructs, where for so many years their whole focus was to get out of the body, that your reward was the afterlife, that this dross form was something to get beyond. When in fact, as a nine-centered human, Homo sapien intransitus, we are here to love the body, to love embodiment. So on the mundane level or the surface, we can look at this channel succeeding where others fail. Well, yes, others fail. They die. We are still alive. The deepest force of the life force, the 29, deep within the deep. What is required to actually be alive in this world is to persevere no matter what the challenges bring, right? Fighting for a life that's worth living. So this 46th gate, when the 29 is turning off and it's no longer an energetic resource for the temple, then there's no longer an infinite depth, deep within the deep, of perseverance or energy to meet obstacle after obstacle to deal with this body. The pain of being born, the pain of learning how to eat, how to keep yourself asleep, the horror or beauty of what it is to be in a form that needs to be fed and looked after and cared for when we are helpless and screaming and cold and no one is there to care for the body when we are unable to do so for ourselves. How many children are walking around with this abandonment wound? Any that are undefined in the survival splenic center. There we go. Survival intelligence. Because they can be incredibly sensitive to that abandonment of not having safety, security, physical well-being. Because they are so dependent. We are so dependent on our family, on our parents, or whoever raised us from the moment we are born. That's part of the pain, that we are helpless, choiceless, when faced with a parent who is maybe not even to the level of abuse, but simply negligent. This 46th gate, when that 29 is no longer its well of perseverance or that energy, what happens is that when the 29 says no to life, the temple doors close, as in embodiment shuts down. That really is the result of the 29 saying no to life. No more life experience. I'm done. Saying yes to death is a very different story. Okay, this abysmal is designed to say yes. But when it's saying no, it's not really saying no to life. It's saying yes to death. It's turning. Just like the monopole turns in order to open the doorway to death, the 29 turns from the life process and says yes to death. So, this commitment, the depth of its commitment to the fullest ramifications of what it means to be embodied. Die, because that is the end. So it's turning its back on the 46, on the temple, no longer fueling the embodiment process, because remember, sacral energy, it is a resource of generative energy. It no longer provides the body with the possibility, the power to be here now. Remember, this is abstract, so it's most existential of all channels. But the being here now in the experience, totally absorbed in the magic and intensity of what it is to be alive, it says no. And instead, it says yes to death. That's the point of no return. Saying now no to the cycle of experience of more life, please. Yes, please. Yes, please. More life, please. What's next? When we say no to that, we now begin the weakening of the form. And that would make sense, yes, if the 46 is our temple and we shut down the energy fueling the temple, the body begins to weaken. So you can see that experience itself strengthens our body. If we are building bodybuilders, building our body, the experience of lifting weights strengthens the form. So when your body is engaged in saying yes to life and yes to the life experience, it has a deeper depth of resources, because this is the gate of perseverance, the deep within the deep. And once it turns its face from the 46 and it says no, the weakening of the body happens because there's no more of the profundity of the regenerative capacity of the sacral center. This incredible resource to life. With no longer yes as the experience, no longer is the body being strengthened. It's weakened. Weakening is necessary because there's not going to be death without it. In other words, we die while still incarnate, as in the body begins to deteriorate. That is the dying process. That's stage 4. To remember this, think of 4 and how 4 is exhaustion, people fatigue, burnout. Okay, this is stage 4. We're in gate 29. We're at the end of the process. It is the 6th line. So this is going to be one of the most obvious things that you'll see when you're watching somebody, if being a death doula or holding space while someone's going through their death process is going to be part of your life experience. For example, you go to sit at your parents' bedside or whatever elder, somebody that you know that you're watching. If you think about the terms of our cyclical process of life, somebody you may think about when the moon goes over the 10, and in the next couple of weeks, you might have the opportunity to speak to them or see them. The reality is that by the time the moon reaches that 29th gate, you're going to be able to see physically the difference between when the moon was in 10 and when the moon is in 29. That is the final point of no return, when the weakening of the body happens. So if the moon in the 29th gate only shows you its bright, shiny face, you'll perk up. Let's see. If you're going to get through those doldrums, maybe shaking off the fear of something being wrong, you might renew your focus of intensity towards what is coming, your commitment to life, what can be done to face the difficulties. Remember? We had difficulty at the beginning in stage 2. Is this direction right for you? Stage 3, gate 2, line 2. And then there is this energetic shift that takes place when we get to this point of no return. Either we say yes or no. The psychological mindfuck of going through 10 and 3 and 2 when one is on death's doorway, we would think, when you're feeling, let's say, really sensitized, you've got an undefined splenic center, and you're really not feeling well, can't move. That's a psychological mindfuck. I feel like I'm dying. Anybody else had that experience? When you're really sensitized to this cycle, when you can feel the monthly drama, month after month of going through the fact that you may be facing your death and maybe deteriorating from the 10 to the 2. Remember, by the time that you get to the 29, you might kick back up into gear, crank up your life force, that rush of commitment to embodiment, or you say yes to death. That is a different story. Story. That's something different in store, a different doorway. Yeah. The experience of feeling that physically, the weakening of the body. Ross says that, quote, anyone who is truly in the dying cycle, when the moon hits the 29th gate, that's when the weakness appears in the body. And it's not just simply the kind of thing where you feel like, for example, you have a very high fever and you feel really weak in that sense. It's deeper than that. Because remember what the 29th gate brings us. The life experience maintains the strength of the body. Strength of the body isn't simply its muscle tone. It's the very dynamic of the way in which every organ and every aspect of the body operates. The strength of those organs, arteries, this and that. There is a weakness that emerges when the body says yes to death. So, Ross says, for example, for me, that 29th gate can be the classic gate of aneurysm, as an example. All these kinds of things that can arise at the moment that the strength is taken from the body. I would imagine heart attack would be another thing. The sudden weakening of the body, whatever it is, where the strength is taken from the body. Maybe it's taking a turn for the worst. You heard that? They took a turn for the worst. They're not going to last the night, whatever the case may be. So the weakness in the body is visible. You can see how their body is going to react, the expression on the face. So the 29th gate, remember, it is experiential. It's visual stimulation because we are talking about the sensing circuitry linked to the spirit, where we're looking at dealing with someone in the death cycle. We're seeing a clicking out. Ross said clicking in. I would say it's a clicking on the going out, where it's their turn and you can see it because of these cues at the physical level, the weakness in the body being visible. A real difference from before you saw them when they were at, maybe even a few days before, but certainly up here when that new lunar cycle process, that death cycle process began when the moon hit gate 10. So if you saw them, you might even have a difficulty recognizing that they're the same person before this weakness becomes visible because we're past the point of no return. So when you're standing outside of them, experiencing the visible effects of their physical deterioration, what Ross says is at this time, that sixth line, the moon being in confusion, is that the personality is in complete acceptance of its fate, because that is the way it seems to express itself It's being conditioned by the chemistry that is released by this 29th gate when it says yes to death. Because the system begins to shut down, the vehicle preparing for the system shut down. Ross says it's actually quite gentle. Neither a long or particularly short one, but a gradual deterioration accompanied by a transformation, if this is a natural death, for the way that the spirit seems to be operating. We are designed to go to the end of our lives, ready to embrace our transformation, our final frontier in this body, at peace. Can you imagine facing your death in peace? This is the 6th line of gate 29. In this hexagram, this is the trigger where it actually is. The 6th line is always about transformation. Isn't it a keynote for all 6 lines? Transformation. They're moving to the next hexagram, so they always represent change. Every single hexagram, its 6th line level, looks beyond where it stands towards something else. Looking beyond, all the way down the line of circuitry, all the way through, past the horizon too, carrying with it seeds of the future. Because again, remember, 6 lines are mutative. They are utterly unique. It's also that the 6th line represents the themes of trust, this line of the role model, the embodiment of leading through demonstrating the model. One of the interesting things about a role model is that its dilemma between living its truth or being hypocritical is one of the things that is absolutely part of its process. And this is the era that we are moving into, the key to the new era, the new age, simply living your truth of embodiment. So at this stage, living the truth of the coming to the end of the process is absolutely essential. Can you imagine someone accepting their death? They're at death's doorway, they're in complete acceptance, and they're at peace. How impressive that is, isn't it? Human beings are designed to be impressed by role models, people who live and experience and express their truth, even when faced, and especially when faced, with death. It's a beautiful gift to be able to witness without the pain and the suffering of thinking that this is the ultimate end. It isn't. It's a doorway. It's a change in state. The bold blue in this line, the abysmal, gate of perseverance, 6th line, confusion, the learning, as in the fullest experience and expression of the wisdom potential, it says the state that exists when momentum outstrips awareness, when the whole momentum for life comes to an end. The 29th gate is in charge of our momentum, our energy to move through space and time. That's its job. To keep on keeping on. Are you going to keep on going? Are we going to keep on committing to yes to the life process? Or are we going to turn our face and say yes to death? So really, not a no. It's it turning into the yes to death, which means then that it's no to more cycles of life existence, and then the weakening of the physicality, this physical loss of momentum. You can see it. Psychologically, what people say, it seems to be that they just gave up. They let go of their hold on life. And that's what Ra calls the clicking in to death. But they're not doing anything. Remember, that's an illusion. It's an illusion that we are in control. It's an illusion that we have a choice. Even though we live in this world of Maya, where it seems there are endless choices, in truth, death comes to us all, and it is not a choice. We are all passengers witnessing the vehicle as it moves through its life and then death process. We do not control the life. We surrender to living this one precious life in witness to the form principle. That's what Ra means by no choice, said the voice. As in, we are passengers, witness consciousness. The vehicle lives and dies. You don't have any control on any level or in any way are you managing that experience. All you can manage to do is watch, witness, see, be aware. But it has its own process, it as in the body. And we as a personality, remember, there are going to be planetary activations potentially that fix you to one expression or experience of life and the death process or the other, and there's nothing you can do about it. It is a program. We're all programs looking at a program from within a program. So here, let's see again, Mars. Surprise, surprise. But Mars is now in the exaltation, with Jupiter being the detriment. No surprise, hey? Where we have Mars still involved with the death process. Mars exalts, says driving blind, and given Mars energy and determination, often blind luck. The power to persevere that makes no sense. At a certain point, being committed to life makes no sense. It really doesn't. This is the fight inside of us, the fight to live, or the fight to have a good death. You ever wonder about those ancient soldiers, Japanese or Vikings or whatever? They want a good death. You know, they want to fight for their life, to fight to the death, an honorable death. Remember, with this natural death we're talking about here, that weakening of the body, that weakening of the body actually ends the need for a commitment to anything. This place where you're not interested in anything anymore. Nothing tastes good. Nothing smells good. Nothing feels good. If you're really on the dying cycle, food is no longer a thing that really turns you on, or anything else for that matter, because this door is closing. This deep phase in the life where this power to persevere is gone. It just goes away, saying no to the cycle. It might sound something like, I'm done. I'm not going to persevere. There's no way. I can't even move. How can I persevere? I can't even take care of myself. And just the mind gives up. This is the end of the road. This is the place where the next stage is the actual end of the cycle. And if that clicks in, it's going to bring the death. When we look at Jupiter detriment, it says a tendency in confusion, remember the sixth line is confusion of gate 29, to withdraw rather than accept the condition and continue to persevere. In other words, the power in confusion to caution rather than saying yes. And this is one of those places where in those who are actually going to die, the confusion theme is really powerful. You ever seen them really confused? They seem to be disoriented. It was the thing that scared my husband so, because I couldn't barely talk when he found me on the floor in the hallway before he called the ambulance to rush me to the hospital. I could not. I was so confused. I remember laying on the floor, wondering why he was calling the dogs to his room through his door when I was actually facing the wrong way and he was taking them out into the living room where their kennels are. I was so confused, wondering why he was calling them into his room. Well, I was just facing the wrong way. I was completely disoriented. So, no surprise that when the body is weakening, form is detaching, of course, the confusion about what's going on, where we don't really know what makes sense anymore. It can appear that the personality is going in and out mentally, like they're not really connected to the body. Because again, you have to see this whole perseverance theme, the whole commitment to life. Life is a commitment. Yeah. Living. You have to be committed to living in order to truly live. So it's accompanied by a psychological reaction. In the moment that the vehicle says, this is it. Remember, we're talking about the body deciding. It's not the mind. The body decides, I don't have the energy to continue living. Nothing changes the mind. You can't escape the death. When the body has accepted death, it says yes to death. So, confusion is the name of the game there. Remember, when we see Mars persevering, it makes no sense. The potential you could see to move your way through this, whatever beyond, whatever that is that you're experiencing. And the moments where, again, the importance of what we are doing here, you, me, anybody who takes this course or class or experience, is that our knowledge of human design can be so incredibly helpful, not just for us who are guiding someone who is going through, or the people who are witnessing someone going through, their loved one going through that death process, but we ourselves in our own nature being prepared in terms of our awareness of what life is. The body is the life, and what it means for us to leave this plane, witnessing the body in its deterioration, and then moving on beyond into our Bardos stage. So we see what's more common in the not self. This other side is more common in the not self, this confusion. Rather than accepting the condition and continuing to persevere, it's a tendency of confusion to simply withdraw. Remember, most of these activations, people are going to get balances. They're going to get a this or a that. And so that's going to orient them towards the way that their not self operates. So their tendencies will go relative to the not self. Not self usually pulls people towards detriments when you have an open thing. So if the theme itself is open, as in there's no planetary activation, okay, there's no planetary activation. When it's open, what tends to happen, people move to extremes. They are in the negative. Maybe they try to be on the positive side of things, but they are generally the not self in the negative. This might be one of the confusions that people have. You know how people take raw out of context? Where the not self gets pulled, not self simply meaning not you. There's no gate there, as in a planetary activation there. So generally, the tendency is to get to confusion. Anyway, when we go to this 29th gate, this is the doorway. And it's here that in this doorway, we currently stand in stage 4, where we see Mars in its symbol of blind enthusiasm for life. Yeah, the energy, how beautiful this energy really is. That energy to embrace life, persevering. It makes no sense. I want to live. You know, it's something that you feel in Mars. I want to fight for life. This hunger for life, this enthusiasm, this blind drive. Now, Ross says it can be a real drag too. You know, if you're fighting against, it makes no sense. You're fighting against, let's say, a tsunami that's dragging you down and you're going down. So that fight is there in Mars. Jupiter, the holiest of holies, the great one, we call it the king of the solar system, and this one that dispenses the law, you know, the rule. Jupiter says, all right, you've done a very good job. Aren't you terrific? I love it when Ross said terrific. Aren't you terrific? You're a wonderful creature. And now, in my enormous beneficence, I'm going to terminate your life. A gift from the God of gods. I'm going to give you a treat. You get an afterlife. Ooh, bonus, Bardo. Sweet. Let's do it. So, Ra's intent in this was twofold. The obvious side of it is what it means for each of us to simply make contact at a deeper level with the program, the death cycle that we all go through every month. This is the life program. It's not just a death program. He wants us to see that it can bring death, but it's also the appreciation of our lives, these finite, limited lives. Remember, there's this great behavior in our life, our own behavior. Be yourself to love yourself. This is our learning process. What is your behavior? Even if you don't have a planet within gate 10, you can see your personality, the line quality, right there in your behavior. It is your correct alignment to truth of witnessing. Whereas the body and its one precious life has its own behavioral identity, regardless of whether you have a planet there in gate 10. So we look through, as we go through our lunar learning process, you take all of this in. If you look for it from the beginning, start when the moon hits gate 10. So that your behavior in the world, you can see it, witness it. What do you resonate to? Do you notice the moon as it moves through? Have you ever contemplated which planetary activations we actually have the most of? I'm curious if potentially we could maybe let Loki know. Wouldn't it be nice? Loki, can we have this extra, Ra's eldest son, this extra analysis where you just tell us which planets we have the most of activations? Which planets do we actually have a connection to, as in the line qualities, the imprints, okay, through the transits? And how many of us would be lunar creatures? Well, many, because the moon physically pulls and pushes on us in so many ways and places and spaces. Your behavior in the world, how is it affected by the moon? Is it? Can you feel the tide, the rush of the moon, the moodiness, the longing, the wistfulness, the sadness, the fullness, the coldness, the bright light, or the dark face? Which is it that she's showing to you as it moves around the wheel? Does it specifically key differently, cyclically? And Ra wasn't a big fan of doing lunar returns, but if you have the energy and you actually explore this or investigate or research, I would hear about your process. I really would. The moon is, oops, hang on, my internet. Okay, my internet should be okay now. The moon is fascinating. Wouldn't you agree? Our behavior in the world can lead us to mutation. If your behavior is correct, it leads to mutation. Why? Because your own unique behavior is yours and yours alone. No comparison. Absolutely none. Now, mutation leads us into direction. The direction of the self, the higher self. This is part of our nature, our role. And then direction, further still, leads us to commitment. That unique direction through this portal of mutation that began with our behavior, that direction leading us to the commitment of the embodiment. This is our life as well as our death process. And then finally, commitment leads to possession in great measure. Jupiter rewarding us with our possessions in great measure. Now, that's not a stagnant, stuck place. It's movement through space, possession. If you think about it in the ancient Rave I Ching, it was the loaded down wagon, you recall? Pulled by oxen, whatever possessions you have in great measure. It's the power skills inside that leads us to the beat, a design of being keeper of the keys to the kingdom. What kingdom? This realm, this illusion of separation within the higher self, this path of existence, definitely not least resistance. We do our best through our decision-making process of being our own authority, experimenting with our strategy, and finding the truth that arises from within the deep, this perseverance that sometimes makes no sense, this commitment of right behavior in the world through our mutative direction in order to find our own treasure, this loaded down wagon. In other words, Ra says, quote, it is a profound cycle in terms of the way in which it can move us. It meaning this lunar process, our monthly death cycle, because we're all dying, and then renewing, kind of like renewing our vows, our commitment to life, or bowing gracefully. That's our cue. We're taking, is it the easy way out? We're taking the road everyone travels in order to leave this space in whatever dignity and grace there is for us to see, because we are witnesses, you see? Passenger consciousness. As soon as we understand that in taking this in, this deep within the deep, this deep awareness of what there is to process through the lunar transit, the 29th gate with this moon moving like clockwork, month after month after month after month, it is a celebration of yes to life. So, being attuned to recognize that we are all within this mechanism of the life cycles. My mind gave me this flash of like a conveyor machine. It's taking us along on our journey, because life is like that. It seems to be that we are moving linearly, but in our experiential process, it's quite abstract. Can you see? Have you noticed? Particularly when you try to make sense of it, looking at the past. So to be attuned and recognize that this mechanism that we're exploring, it's at work in yourself every month. You'll see it in others, and it can deeply enrich your process, your awareness, this fascinating life journey, this fascinating exploration of death every month. The moon in the 29th gate. Ra says it's not a great day to put stress on the body. It's actually a regenerating day. So like we have our 6 line days of rest where we take it easy. Has anyone else been experimenting with that? Unless I have a class that classes are weekly. Unfortunately, we only have 6 days, so I can't necessarily take every 6 line day off. But on those days, I give myself more rest, as in I take it easy. Because the moon in gate 29, it's our fundamental day of rest and pleasure. What kind of pleasure? The pleasure of embodiment, because that's what it's generating or regenerating on that day of a commitment to life, a day of celebration, this lunar transit, the 29th gate. How? My last and final words for our lecture in today's process is to simply trust your body, your form. Remember that the aura builds the body. It's not the other way around. And the auric imprinting, the aura, let your aura do the talking. You don't have to force or push. You can allow things to be what they are. And so much of our quote unquote problems or challenges are actually resolved through time, by time. And that's what strategy gives to the mind. It gives the mind a framework for when to take action. So when you're contemplating, should I do this or that? Go back to your strategy. See if you can align to strategy, because it is one of the keys that holds us to the awareness of being our own authority if we were able to simply experiment with it. It is the experimentation that makes all the difference. It is not paying lip service to whatever you think your authority is, but actually living and breathing and being it. I saw recently someone said, no one, absolutely no one, has a raw authority, as in Ra Uruhu, as in don't let him tell you what to do. Don't let anyone tell you what to do. You are your own authority. And the sooner you get right with you in that, the more ease and grace and life flows through you. Because what I experience, I imagine everyone can have the experience of, where it feels like life is deciding through you, as in life is. It simply is. And the more we get our minds out of the control and meddling and simply watch in wonderment or awe, or maybe amusement, maybe excitement, engagement, maybe there's some detachment. It really depends on your program. Each one of you, you have your own program. So witness, watch, be aware. And if you absolutely, utterly must meddle, because the mind is not for meddling, it is to measure. Mind, Maya, to measure. Mind is for measuring out there. And it is for you to be aware that you are beyond compare, that you can rest in this space of great awe for the life process. And you don't have to hold on desperately, but you can allow yourself to surrender, to live and simply be thine own authority. Much love to each of you. Ah, such a beautiful gift, this knowledge.